In this hot sourdough starter quick tip, we're going to show you what to do if you're heading away on vacation or if you just need a break from taking care of your sourdough starter for a while. Caring for a sourdough starter takes a lot of work, time, patience, and energy. So you want to make sure that you can return home from your vacation to a healthy, vibrant, and active sourdough starter. So you need to prepare your sourdough starter for the time away without feeds. The first thing to do is to strengthen your sourdough starter a few days to a week prior to your travel. Assess the condition of your starter. Is it not very active, or is it really active, vital, and healthy, or has it been neglected? If it's strong, vital, and active, just feed it as you normally would, ensuring you feed your sourdough starter every time it reaches its peak activity, giving it a good boost of food and vitality before its period of dormancy. However, if it's been struggling or not very active or has been neglected, start with a higher ratio of starter to food, like a 2:1:1 ratio, and then slowly decrease the amount of starter and increase the food. For more tips to strengthen your sourdough starter, check out our quick tip number 11. After strengthening, you'll want to adjust the consistency of your starter during the final preparation feed. Feed it a little additional flour to make it thicker than usual. This will hold up better during periods of inactivity or dormancy. And it's really easy to do. All you have to do is adjust the ratio of flour to water with slightly more flour, but ensure you can still incorporate the flour and water fully. There are 3 main ways to keep your starter healthy and protected: either refrigerate, freeze, or dehydrate. When we refrigerate our starter, the cold temperatures slow down the fermentation and extend the time between feedings. I like to think of it as kind of a slow motion video, whereas freezing and dehydrating stop the fermentation pretty much altogether and it's frozen in time. It's completely dormant. And you can, of course, store your starter in this way until you're ready to revive it for baking. The choice that you make is dependent upon how long you want your starter to go without a feed. Refrigeration is recommended for periods of about 1 to 4 weeks away, whereas freezing is recommended for more extended periods of greater than 3 weeks. Dehydrating is also recommended for extended periods away, but I recommend you dehydrate yours as a backup and do that now. It's the best way to create a backup of your healthy starter, and it ensures that you always have a healthy and active starter on hand whenever needed. When we refrigerate our starter, it slows the activity, and we can then utilize this when we travel to keep our starter alive and healthy. It also means we can use our refrigerator to take a break from feeding our starter. To decide what to feed your starter, you need to think about, when do you want to bake next? Will it be in just a few days, in a week, or are you going on a vacation for 3 weeks? Choose your feed ratio based on the time to peak. Less starter and more feed means it will peak slower. I always recommend using a rise timer, and this is a perfect example for that, because if you have recorded different feed ratios for your starter's time in the refrigerator, you'll know exactly how your starter behaves. But don't worry, if you've never used one before, you can use this rise timer as an example. But remember, every starter is different, and it's always better to feed a little more than not enough. If you're not sure what I'm talking about with the feed ratios, just check out my quick tips here, and they'll explain everything you need to know. To prep your starter for the refrigerator, feed it and put it to sleep following the 3 R's. So we'll replenish it in the chosen ratio based on the time you're going to be away. But remember, don't put your starter to sleep full or hungry just like us. Let your starter rest on the counter for an hour before refrigerating. And then just refrigerate your starter in the main part of the fridge. And it can stay sleeping away until upon your return from vacation, or when you're ready to take care of your starter again. Remove it from the refrigeration and let it come to room temperature. Then assess your starter's stage of the life cycle and discard and feed your starter depending on the stage it's in. If you have no idea what I'm talking about with the life cycle, check out my video here. It'll explain everything you need to know. If your starter hasn't yet reached its peak, just allow it to rest on the counter until it peaks. But if your starter is at its peak, feed it a lower ratio of starter to food, like 1:1:1. And if the starter has passed its peak, feed a higher ratio of starter to food, like 3:1:1. And this is because there's not as many microorganisms left in the jar. Then just cover it loosely and let it rest. And once your starter returns to peak activity, you can use it to bake, or you can replenish it again and return it to the refrigerator. If your starter is still sluggish after the initial feeding, just continue to discard and feed at the peak activity until the starter is consistently rising and falling predictably. If you're going to be gone for a longer period of time, you're going to want to freeze your starter. And to do this, you want to replenish it in the same way as you normally would. However, the starter needs to be healthy and active before freezing, so you want to make sure to follow our 6 strengthening steps if you need to. Then just rest it until it reaches its peak activity and divide into smaller portions. Then freeze those portions and store them in the freezer. It's super simple, but if you'd like to see how I do this, I'm making a quick tip on how to freeze a sourdough starter coming up next. I'll also talk about how to thaw and revive your starter in that next video. The last option is to dehydrate your starter. In order to do that, you need to prepare your starter just like we did when we froze it, and it needs to be healthy and active. And feed it as usual and let it reach its peak activity. Then you just spread it on a non-stick surface and dry it, break it into pieces, and store it in an airtight container. If you'd like to see how I do this, then check out my video on how to create a backup of your sourdough starter. It's coming up soon. And in that video, I'll also show you how to rehydrate and bring your starter back to life. And upon your return, let's make some sourdough. Check out our delicious and free recipes at TUMERICMeCrazy.com. And if you haven't yet, check out all of our other quick sourdough tips on our YouTube channel, Tumeric Me Crazy. And if you've enjoyed these quick tips, please give us a like and a positive comment and subscribe to our channel to find out when our next videos come out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.